I've come to save him from your power. Listen, Dante. Do you really believe I'm a genius?
Yes. You're like my master. I've read all of your poems.
Aloud, move the sun and the stars. Send me here to tell you to guide him, to save him. And if you will help him, I will glorify you in front of our love.
We are the gangsters, we are proud. We are the gangsters singing loud. Killing and shooting and stealing our lives again. Run!
Bene, ho fatto
Right, I wanted to show the video right away, and if you are interested in it, you can go to AVSI stand and you can watch the whole video. It lasts about 15 minutes, and you can have a glimpse at the whole experience that lasted about 5-6 years. This was a theatrical workshop held in Nairobi, starting in Little Prince. I see some friends from Nairobi, and I'm really gazing upon them right now. In Little Prince, people realized that theater was really helpful, and it was a way to get access to knowledge through expression. As you can see, there's lots of kids with great expressive potential, a lot of energy, a lot of joy. So starting with this experience, and thanks to a number of friends, it was possible to carry out a project in memory of Dante, a great friend. And this project meant equipping this school of a theatrical area, because not by bread alone, men live also by beauty and poetry. That's what we are here for, and this is what really can help us breathe and live. That is how we try to work and create a real theater space with a stage, with a direction room, starting with a normal hall. And this pushed us to do more, because the nearby schools in the slum or more far away, such as Cardinal Otunga, other schools said that theater is also important for us, not just for Little Prince School. So it was clear that somebody, some genius was needed to be able to work with so many kids, with a wide range of ages. There's kids that are 6-7 years old, and there's big lads such as Ramad, who are 17 years old. Some of them are 18 years old, some of them are 15 years old, and we thought that Marco Martinelli could be this person. He's sitting next to me to my right. He's a director from Teatro delle Albe, and he is the inventor of what he calls no school. Not really a school. We can't really call it a school in Nairobi. We couldn't find a name for it, but this experience really manages to involve lots of young people from every part of the world. He worked in America, in Italy with migrant people, in Milan, and also in a small town of Basilicata in the south of Italy, a place called San Chirico. And he has worked all around the world, putting together different young people and interacting with the great classic works such as Shakespeare's, and in this case he worked with Dante. And the experience has been wonderful. You've just watched a short video about it, but you can really get more information if you are interested, especially for people who are involved in education. I would really recommend this book. It's called In the Name of Dante. It was published a couple of months ago by Marco Martinelli, and here you can really understand how Dante is part of his biography and not just part of his culture. When it is part of his biography, it means that this is something really serious. It's not just about culture. So, as I was saying, this experience was supported by AVSI. It was an intelligent move, indeed, understanding that cooperation is not just providing bread, but it means most of all educating and allowing people to have experience of beauty. I am involved in this, but those young people with a yellow t-shirt, you saw them walking through the slum and reciting the verses of an African poet and by Mayakovsky and by Dante. The excerpt in the video clip was by Dante, and I just cried. I turned 65 years old yesterday. I'm a bit ashamed of that because I know I look older, but I admit that I was so moved, so much moved, that to see that where we were walking, there were some parts of the slum that were burning. There was traffic, there was noise, a lot of hustle and bustle. So seeing that poetry could make its way into that situation was really wonderful. Kibera hosts 300,000 people in very difficult conditions. That's very, very complicated. You can also look at the pictures near our stand. So I don't want to take time from the others. I'm going to give the floor to my colleague Masuri. Antonino Masuri. So we have supporters and fans here. Antonino Masuri has been working in Kenya since 2007, and in AVSI Kenya, Mr. Masuri is the program coordinator for distance support, and it is wonderful to see him at work. Giuseppe D'Angeli and I could see the archives for every individual kid, and I'm sure that he can tell us about what this experience of Dante in Kibera has meant. This experience is supported through distance support. So you have the floor now.
Bene.
Can you hear me? Good evening. So I just wanted to tell you how this beautiful adventure started. It was a big surprise for us because we didn't know, we hadn't met Martinelli, and we had a lot of work to do. 2 years ago, we got a phone call in our headquarters of AVSI, and they told us there's this great director, very well known, and he's a very important person, and you have to welcome him. And then they called again. Are you sure that you have understood how important he is? And he's someone who's very famous. He's been awarded a lot of prizes, and people study his work so well. I said, let's try to do our best to prepare for his visit. There were 3 children, 25,000 poor people we support. So when we always have to be ready for any urgency or emergency. So I contacted him and I asked, what do you need? Do you want to have meetings with the adults, with the children? Do you need anything? And he said, I don't need anything. I just come to see what the situation is like. Do you need a blackboard? Do you need anything? And he said, no, I don't need anything. So I was really in a panic because I didn't know what to expect. But when he arrived, I found out he's really a gentleman. He's very simple, and what he said was true. He came to see what the situation was like. From the very beginning, he said, I would like to focus on teenagers for teenagers. And this really hit me because everybody wants children. We have beautiful children. They are really very cute and nice. And he said, no, I wanted to work with the teenagers and pre-teenagers because these are the young people who start wondering who they are, what they're doing. So I wanted to work with them. So you don't have to send the whole class, the whole school. Only those who want to participate will have to. So I really understood that this man, was following the reality of things. There was a workshop with the teachers in our Kibera schools, and a teacher said, well, Martinelli, this is all good and fine, but what kind of text do you want to work upon? And how do you want to prepare the scenes? And he said, well, we don't need anything. The children, the teenagers will be doing everything. No, he said, I don't want to choose a text beforehand. I want to meet the kids first. So this is the same method that we have always been following in schools with children who have suffered with terrible experiences in their lives. So we love art, but we organize these workshops because we have realized that these children who had a terrible experience that can block them can be helped through art. They blossom again in these workshops. We also noticed that they improved their performance at school as well. So there was the first meeting with the school children. But first, we met with a child from the slum, and he asked him, "You're a very famous person. What is the most important thing in your life?" And he said, "My wife." Well, in a slum where AIDS is 22% of the population, that means that love and relationships are something very fluid in a way. And you get an answer like this. This means that love exists. And, well, then a teacher asked, I would like to say that for me, the most important thing is my husband. Well, it's not as fascinating as what Mr. Martinelli said. Anyway, he met the school children. The day after, the mom of one of the school children came and said, "Who is Martinelli?" He said, "Our boy is very introvert. He doesn't speak, and if he does, it's just because he wants to exercise his right, or he's quite arrogant." And yesterday, after the workshop with Martinelli, he talked to us for 1 hour, telling us what they had been doing. So actually noticing that there was something blossoming in the relationship with the teachers and the children. So at a certain point, he said, I propose that you do the Divine Comedy, because in this slum, you know what the inferno is, what hell is, and for each of us, there is always a moment in our lives when everything is dark, when there is no reference point, but there is always a friend ready to help you. And if you want to be truthful and realistic, you need to admit that you cannot save yourselves if you don't have a friend. So this was really a beautiful experience because our children who had suffered in many different ways could actually blossom thanks to this relationship with Director Martinelli, and we are really grateful for the friendship that has been born out of this workshop. Thank you, Antonino Masuri, who has told us in a few words the story of years of friendship and work. Marco Martinelli is here with us. Well, and it is true. He always says, first we have to work with the children, with the kids. I have some videos on my cell phone of these improvised theatrical works at the beginning. So now I'm asking Marco, how did you live this experience, and how did you decide to choose Dante after a year? Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Masu. What can I say now after an introduction like this? I'm quite embarrassed. It's been a beautiful experience because I've met people like Masu, like Nino, Andrea, all the people in Nairobi and Kibera who work there. I've been there for just a couple of years. You are there all the time, and you are much more important than I am for what you do. But the responsibility lies with him, with Riccardo, who knows our work, and he talked to the AVSI people about our work. In Milan, I met Riccardo and Salvo Capello from AVSI, and they asked me to work at this school. I knew Emanuele already, and so I was really thrilled to participate. But at the time, and it was not because I wanted to be snobbish, but I really had a very full agenda. I said, I'd really love to come, but for the next 2 years maybe, you probably won't believe it, I won't have the time to come to Nairobi. I have too many commitments already, and Hermana was telling me, you're working too hard. Hermana is my wife. So Bonacina and Capello, partners in crime, said, okay, you don't have to come, but please just listen to us. We will just tell you a couple of things. And so they started talking about how in the schools of Kibera, not the AVSI schools, it is normal to hit kids. Teachers hit kids at school. This is something I had never heard before. It makes me think of Charles Dickens' novels, and but it still happens there. Whereas in the AVSI school, the Little Prince and other schools, this behavior is not accepted, and the children go to school happily because they know that there is a place in Kibera where their dignity as persons is actually respected. So this has really opened up my heart, and that has actually overturned my agenda. And I said, okay, I'll come. So we had the first meeting with Masu in spring 2017, in March. And as he said, our way of working is to enter a new world, to become very small, almost invisible, to watch these kids, to look at their faces, to understand the way they live. And only after 1 year, after we went there 3 or 4 times together with Laura, who's an actress, we call this a school, theatrical school, but it's a no school actually, because it's not a theatrical school. A theatrical school makes a selection of its students. We do not do that. Our door is open. Anyone can come in. If you are short or tall, thin or fat, it doesn't matter. You're a human being, so in a way you are a gift from God for those who believe, a gift from the universe if you prefer, and your beauty is our starting point. So we wanted to make all the kids that were interested, we did not want the school as a whole, the class as a whole, because if you take a whole class, you will have like half of the people who are there just because their teachers told them that they had to. And this is not what you have to do if you want to learn how to act, because at the roots of acting there is a desire for acting. So since the school in Kibera is something beautiful, we cannot talk about a non-school. So we simply said it was theater. Nobody, when I asked, was capable of explaining what a theater meant. Not even teachers. The culture of theater in Kenya is non-existent. So since I had to choose a text, I decided not to choose Molière or Shakespeare, the great classical authors we always resort to in our non-school method. So I decided to propose, I said, I have to tell you a story. I didn't say Dante Alighieri, because nobody knows him. Nobody knows the Divine Comedy. So I said that there was a man who was lost in a dark forest in the night, alone. But this forest is not just a forest or a wood in the night. It is the forest of his fears, of his failures, because maybe this man made mistakes, failed. And in this forest, there are some wild animals who want to kill him. Do you think it is an interesting story? It has an interesting beginning, and everybody said, of course, we are interested. It is our story. And they asked me, do you know what Kibera means? It means forest. So the dark forest is Kibera. And what do these wild animals do to this lost man? And everyone said they eat him. Don't you think there might be another solution? Can anyone point to a different solution? And the small child said, well, I think he's not going to die, because I think he's going to call his mom. But it is exactly what Dante does. Dante, we know that, sees a shadow approaching and says, mercy on me, whoever you are, a shadow or a man. So we can be saved if we see a hand coming towards us, and we can actually take this hand. We can save ourselves from the wild animals if we believe that there is someone that can help us. So in a way, these children knew more than most Dante experts, because they knew what was at the basis of Dante's masterpiece, a human experience, the quest for happiness. And a small child says, I asked this small child, what does your mom do? Could she save you? And he says, I don't have a mom. I don't have any parents. So you see, when we say that we make classical pieces come alive, we have to take them seriously. When Dante writes to Cangrante della Scala, he explains that he has written this poem not to be awarded an Oscar, so to speak, or to become a popular figure. I wrote this poem because I wanted to free mortals from their situation and lead them towards happiness. So these words in Kibera are immediately understood because the lives of these people is divided between hell and the quest for happiness. So we decided to start working, but instead of explaining to you the different circles of the hell in Dante's comedy, you tell me, what are the different parts of the hell here in Kibera? And they knew really a lot about, they talked about murders, about corrupted politicians. Well, this is something that we see everywhere. In Italy, 7 centuries ago, politicians were corrupted. Today, well, you will be able to say your own on this. And in Kibera, it's the same thing. So it is a universal concept. Dante has actually chosen a universal idea that came out from the spirit of the tale recounted by these children. So we have created the hell, purgatory, where you are purified through beauty, through poetry, to the quest for beauty. In Dante's work, all artists are in the purgatory. They are in the intermediate area. They're still on the earth, but they look at heaven. And as Riccardo was saying, we thought about a purgatory that was walking through the streets of Kibera, and with the words of a Kenyan poet, or by Walter Whitman, Dante, and then Emily Dickinson, we created some kind of invasion of the city, and then finally paradise. Here we used, apart from the prologue, here we had a few lines from Dante. We used the 33rd chapter of the Paradise, that is to say, the prayer to the Virgin Mary. I tried to read it out, and I asked, do you think we can close with these lines, with these words? And it is really incredible, and you know better than I do, it is not easy to talk about the meaning of what is divine in Italian schools. You cannot insist on that because everyone have their own sensitivity and so on. So whereas there it is the opposite. Everybody is convinced that there is something above us. Love moves the sun and other stars. The last line of the comedy, the children explained the meaning of these lines to me. So I'm really grateful to these partners in crime, to Masu, and to all the children who actually taught me what Dante is. They taught me what is the burning basis of our Italian culture. Thank you. Thank you to Marco Martinelli. One of the actors is Lamas. His part was that of a policeman or a politician, a corrupted politician. So we would like to ask you what this experience meant to you. Lamas lives in the slum in Kibera, and he attends the Cardinal Otunga school. So please tell us about this experience and what it meant to you.
Mi chiamo Lamas, and I'm glad to be in this place in front of you tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, just as Martinelli has mentioned, also Mazo has mentioned, that in Africa, the issue of theater is not common. It is not there to everyone. Not all of us understand what is theater. We only watch your movies. We only watch movies from Asia, Europe, and other continents. But truly, we don't understand what is theater. So my journey in theater starts with an invitation from my class teacher, Mr. Dennis. It was just at the end of English lesson when he called me outside the class and told me, now Lamas, there will be a play that our school will be taking part in it, and I want you to take part to be one of the actors. Because I didn't know what is interesting in theater, I said no. Because I was trying to imagine seeing myself shouting, seeing myself acting like a madman, you know. So I was saying no. And I told my teacher, I can't. This teacher kept on telling me every day, at the end of every lesson, every day, he could come and tell me, Lamas, I invited you to come and rehearse with us to take part in the play. So what have you thought of? Will you take part in it? But he said, I answered him, the first answer, I said no. But something came in my mind and told me that my school director, Mr. Koech, or Mr. Joachim, he always tells us that when someone calls you for lunch, or when someone tells you, come and have dinner with me, ask yourself why. Because there is always a reason behind it. So first, I accepted the request to join the play because I remember the word that my school director says. And secondly, I accepted the request because I wanted just to make my class teacher happy. But for me to be sincere, I was not comfortable accepting. I was not sincere to accept the request to join the play. So I went to start the rehearsal. My first day in rehearsal, it was boring. And I told my friends, no, I will not go back there. And even my friends were telling me, even me, I will not go. And we made an agreement that this thing is boring. But since every day I wanted to make my class teacher happy, I just kept on going for the rehearsals. And I remember 1 week later, Martinelli arrived in Kenya. And our first rehearsal with him at Cardinal Otunga school, because I go to Cardinal Otunga school, I can define that the best school in Kenya for me. Under the distant support of AVSI. And I'll say that certainly when Martinelli arrived in Kenya, that's when my passion to join the theater or to move with the theaters came up. Because during my first rehearsal, because first we were not given lines. We were only given characters, and I was told act as a corrupt politician. So I asked myself, a corrupt politician? And again I said, no, I can't act like that. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I aspire to be a politician in future. And my classmates knows that.
E i miei compagni di scuola lo
And
sanno.
even my friends knows that.
E visto che lo sanno,
So I told myself,
ho detto non posso.
these people will hear I'm acting as a corrupt politician.
Non posso fare la parte
So
del politico corrotto.
they will start calling me a corrupt one.
Perché poi mi avrebbero proprio chiamato
I-
corrotto anche in futuro.
I said no,
E così ho detto no,
I can't move on with this.
non posso andare avanti.
So my first rehearsal on the stage,
Quindi la mia prima prova sul palco,
everyone had acted. Then it was time for corrupt politicians to act.
tutti gli attori avevano già fatto la loro parte, toccava appunto al politico corrotto.
And you know what? I was the first corrupt politician to appear on the stage.
E devo dire che il primo che si è presentato sul palco per fare il politico corrotto sono stato proprio io.
Then, just like any other corrupt politician, I know you know them. I made a big promise.
Devo dire che come da bravo politico corrotto ho fatto una promessa.
I made a promise that cannot come to pass.
Una promessa che non si può realizzare.
Just like our politicians does.
I politici, i nostri politici.
So I promised the people that when you elect me,
Se mi eleggerete,
I'll pray to God. I'll ask God
pregherò Dio
that to hold on Jesus, that Jesus may not come soon, that so that we may repent our sins and not go to hell.
per Gesù, la venuta di Gesù, in modo che abbiamo il tempo di
So-
pentirci dei nostri peccati.
So the people that we are,
non dobbiamo andare all'inferno. Quindi
so the people that I was acting with on the stage,
le persone che erano con me sul palco
they clapped and
hanno cominciato ad applaudirmi.
and I heard Martinelli said, "Allora,
E Marco Martinelli ha detto allora,
you are the best actor. You can do this."
sei l'attore migliore di tutti, lo puoi fare.
And that's the first day that I knew the word "allora."
E così ho imparato che cosa significa allora.
So Martinelli telling me that you can do it, you can act.
E Martinelli mi dicesse che potevo farlo, che potevo recitare.
The bad attitude towards acting went.
Ha cancellato questo mio, diciamo così, atteggiamento negativo nei confronti
Because-
dell'attività di attore.
Now I said, if someone from Italy can tell me I can act, then I can act.
Se un italiano mi dice che so fare recitare, vuol dire che so recitare.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's my journey, how my journey started in theater.
Ed ecco come è iniziato così il mio percorso nel teatro.
So we continued rehearsing.
Abbiamo continuato a fare le prove.
I became the best corrupt politician,
Sono diventato il miglior politico corrotto.
but only in the act, not in real life. I'll be the
Però
best
soltanto
politician.
soltanto nella vita sarò il politico migliore di tutti.
Okay. Grazie bene. Okay, so I said, since he said I can
Quindi, come
act,
dicevo, se Martinelli mi dice che posso fare l'attore,
I said the bad attitude towards acting went.
vuol dire che posso davvero farlo e quindi non ero più contrario alla recitazione.
And I told myself that no, I'm not a corrupt politician. I'm only enlightening the
Mi sono
people.
detto, non sono veramente un politico corrotto,
I'm only telling my people how
soltanto facendo vedere alla mia gente
corrupt politicians come to fool us.
come si comportano i politici corrotti, come fanno ad imbrogliarci.
So I realized that the way I'm acting on stage is not the way people will see me later.
Mi sono reso conto che quello che facevo sul palcoscenico non era il modo in cui poi le persone mi avrebbero visto in un futuro.
So this gave me courage
E questo mi ha dato coraggio
to act as a corrupt politician.
e ho potuto appunto recitare la parte del
And
politico
also-
corrotto.
And also this gave me courage to
Mi ha dato il coraggio
to start the journey in theater.
di iniziare appunto a fare veramente il teatro.
So Martinelli, grazie bene for your words.
E grazie a Marco Martinelli
Martinelli, thank you. Your words made me to start a journey in theater.
che mi ha permesso di iniziare questo viaggio nel teatro.
So the rehearsal continued,
Grazie per queste parole. Quindi.
and we perfected on our parts.
Avanti le prove.
We acted, and we acted in front of many people
Poi ci ha chiuso moltissime persone
around the streets of Kibera,
nelle strade di Kibera,
in our school,
a scuola,
and many people appreciated our act.
e il nostro lavoro è piaciuto a moltissime persone.
Even people from Kibera, because I was born in Kibera and I grew up in Kibera,
Perché è lì che sono nato, è lì che sono cresciuto,
and I live in Kibera still.
è lì che vivo tutt'oggi.
So acting in front of my people
Quindi ecco, recitare di fronte alla mia gente
you know, your people seeing you acting, they see you as a star.
Quando la gente che ti conosce ti vede recitare ti vede un po' come una star.
So they started telling each other, hey, we saw Lamas on TV.
E quindi hanno cominciato a dire abbiamo visto Lamas in televisione.
So I started becoming proud,
E quindi cominciavo a essere fiero.
So that's my journey in theater.
Questo è il mio percorso, il mio viaggio nel teatro.
So just after acting the last day on the video that you are watching just some few minutes ago,
L'ultima giornata di recitazione che avete visto anche nel video, poco fa nel filmato,
I started regretting because in Little Prince
ho cominciato a sentirmi dispiaciuto perché a Little Prince
there were these proposals for me to take part in the plays,
c'era stata questa proposta che io partecipassi appunto ad una commedia,
but I couldn't accept the proposal
non ho potuto accettare questa proposta
because I thought that maybe acting is not for serious people.
perché ho pensato che probabilmente
It's
recitare non è una cosa da gente seria, da persone serie,
it's only for jokers.
è soltanto per i buffoni.
So I asked myself, so I've wasted the things that can make me happy.
Ho pensato a quelle che sono le cose che mi fanno felice
So I think I'll continue the journey in theater.
e sono giunto alla conclusione che dovevo portare avanti questo mio viaggio nel teatro.
The play of Dante was just a beginning, and I hope Martinelli will walk with us forever.
L'inizio e spero che Marco Martinelli continui a lavorare con noi per sempre.
So
Altro che il gatto alla volpe.
I would like to say some few things about this play.
Volevo dire ancora alcune cose su questa commedia.
That this play, it really made me whom I am today.
Commedia ha fatto di me quello che sono oggi.
It made me to be a person that can stand in front of people and talk like the way I'm talking today.
Che può sedersi di fronte a un pubblico e parlare come sto facendo
Bec-
ora.
because initially I could not talk in front of people.
Prima non riuscivo proprio a parlare davanti alla gente.
I was only whispering to people, but I could not address a group like you.
Potevo parlare con un paio di persone alla volta, ma non mi sarei mai potuto rivolgere a un pubblico grande come quello di stasera.
So the play made me at least to be courageous enough to even to be in front of you.
Mi ha perlomeno dato il coraggio di essere qui oggi a parlare di fronte a voi.
Another interesting thing that I discovered in this play,
E un'altra cosa molto interessante che ho scoperto con questa commedia,
there is a girl that we acted with, she's called Stacy.
c'è una ragazza che si chiama Tessie,
And Stacy,
Stacy,
when you ask anyone in Cardinal Otunga school, you'll hear that Stacy is a calm girl who could not speak even in class.
di lei si è sempre detto che era una persona molto tranquilla, riservata, che non parlava mai neanche in classe.
She could not answer any question.
Non rispondeva nemmeno alle domande che le venivano poste.
So just as me, she was
Quindi proprio come me,
invited to take part in the play.
anche a lei è stato chiesto di partecipare alla commedia.
And do you know, people, just after she took part in the play,
Lo ha
now
fatto.
now
E
St-
ora
now Stacy can answer questions in class.
Stacy risponde tranquillamente alle domande in classe.
She can speak in front of many people.
Parla in pubblico
She can socialize with the people.
e può fare amicizia facilmente con tante persone.
So I learned one thing,
Quindi ho capito, ho imparato una cosa,
that sometimes you just need to take a risk in life.
che a volte bisogna essere pronti a correre dei rischi nella vita.
That for me, I just took a risk in life.
E che questo è quello che ho fatto.
I took a risk of being called a corrupt politician.
Corso il rischio che mi chiamassero politico corrotto.
I took a risk of being
Il rischio di
called all bad names that corrupt politicians are called in the society.
essere insultato con tutte le parolacce che di solito si rivolgono ai politici corrotti.
But through the risk today, I can stand in front of you people.
Questo rischio oggi posso essere qui, di fronte a voi.
And through the risk, I can say that
Posso dire
I'm ready to journey in the journey of theater.
che sono pronto a percorrere questo viaggio nel teatro.
So I'm aspiring to be like
Quindi aspiro
Martinelli.
a diventare come Martinelli.
I'm thinking of with my friends. We were thinking of doing
Con
something
i miei amici stiamo pensando di fare qualche cosa.
because he said that he could not come to us directly and tell us that I want you people to act as Dante. So the same way with my friends, we are thinking that since there is a lot of immorality in Kibera, like taking bang and doing many other things bad, we are thinking of coming up with a play to tell this our fellow youth that, you know, this is bad. Because we can't go to our friends and tell them that stop taking bang, it's bad. Because they will cane us. So I discovered that the play is the best way. So I appreciate you people for hearing me. I'm glad. And Martinelli also, thank you so much.
Grazie, grazie a Lamas.
Thank you, Lamas. He couldn't speak, and what do you think of him now? You have a wonderful career in front of you, but don't promise too much. We don't want false promises. Then we have here on the stage Laura Rivelli, an actress who worked with the guys while she was waiting for Marco. She was setting the scene. She was working with improvisation, with the teachers of the different schools. So you can also tell us about your experience there. Thank you. Well, first of all, I'm very happy about what Lamas has just told us, because there is this desire to continue, because something that is really important for us when we travel to places and hold our workshops is to mark something, to leave something that can grow afterwards. We just don't want to go there and do something great and then disappear. If something can be planted and rooted and blossom again, it's wonderful, because things then have a duration. There is a continuity. So there is a little seed that was planted there, and I'm so happy to know that it will continue to grow. And referring to what Riccardo has said, Marco and I tried to do this with the kids in Kibera and with the teachers in Kibera, because one of the wonderful things in those schools is that all the teachers are really young. They are 25, 30 years old, and so there was really a wonderful relationship with them, and we were working together to understand how this work about the Divine Comedy in the Sky over Kibera could have continuity. That is, once we leave, we wanted to know how the kids and the teachers could continue with this theatrical experience, which is fundamental, just like education and many other things. So what Lama said is really clear. He said that some things can be talked about through arts. That's a channel that can be used, taking risks, and those risks can then lead to something beautiful in an act, in a play. So this is something that we have tried to do, working concretely with the kids and with the teachers, trying to understand together in which way it was possible to continue this work. And the way we used in Kibera is the same way we have used in the No School. And I see now Agnese, and there's so many other girls like Agnese who attended the No School in Ravenna for some time. So they also understood that there is a chance to work on the great classical and to learn a lot from those texts. So the question that we posed, as Marco said, was, what is hell in your opinion? And we started with that question to start constructing, to start building our own hell. And through improvisation activities, we worked with the kids. I'm giving you an example. In one of the circles, there were the violent, and within the violent, there were different groups that they invented. For example, burglars, assassins, and violence for the sake of it. That is, people who really want to just be violent around for the sake of it because they like that. So within those three groups, we divided the kids into subgroups. There were so many. There were big groups of kids. So we divided them into groups and we said, 20 of you will be the violent ones. And they started to work on the notion of violence. And we used improvisation. We did something concrete. So let us imagine to walk around at night in Kibera and there is a band of violent people, and this band maybe have some kind of song to identify themselves. So we started to work on rhythms, and we developed some words that could be violent potentially, and that was a way to address something and to look at yourself in the mirror that you see every day, changing it and transforming it. As Lamas said, I was afraid of doing the corrupt politician because I didn't see the distance from reality. But then it was clear that there was a distance that they were simulating. Their scene was actually really funny. People would laugh a lot when they watched their scene. So it was a way to bring what they could see in reality on the other side of the stage. When children have to play the part of murderers, they really do it, and they do it in a playful way. They know it is a game. And within this sense of game and play with some rules, because rules are needed in every game, we created the other circles. We had the circle of the false lovers with some teenagers. We worked with the kids of different age brackets. And we, of course, addressed themes that were more relevant according to the age. And the adolescents, the teenagers, immediately talked about false lovers, these love stories that don't continue. There's people that keep changing their lovers so fast. And so they invented so many groups of sinners. They also invented the punishment, as in the Divine Comedy. And the one in the false lovers, there was a really interesting sinner. The punishment was that their heart would grow so much that it would explode. And then the punishment was that the devils would take the heart and put it back in the chest of the lovers. The politicians instead had some punishments directed by the group of devils that forced them to run and to jump. So that's the way we worked. And then we continued our work in other ways too. For example, we invented this group of devils that would meet in a hell disco club where everybody would dance, and it was a powerful scene because everybody would set free, and the kids were changing the violence they would see every single day. Some of them even practice it, but they change it into dancing. And by watching that, it was really strong and moving, like a punch in the stomach. But it was really nice to see that. I'm trying to go fast because I don't have much time, but at a certain stage we completed our journey through hell with the greatest evil. We asked the children, the kids and the teachers what the greatest evil was for them, and they told us that the greatest evil is evil against the children. For example, street children that are abused, that are drugged, for example. So our hell would end with this kind of evil, the greatest evil with street children. But Dante and Virgil were looking at them and they said, they're victims, we can't leave them, so they wouldn't leave them there, and they took them to purgatory. And our purgatory was a purgatory of poetry. You could see the parade through the streets of Kibera, where so many people went to the street, and a multitude got created there, and so many people followed the parade and the crowd while chanting the verses. After the debut of the work, we just greeted everybody. Marco left, and I stayed a few days more, and I went back to the Little Prince when everything was over, just to work a little bit more and to play together one afternoon. And they wanted to repeat the purgatory of poetry, so they wanted to repeat those verses, and basically everybody learned those verses by heart, and everybody was raising their hands, and they wanted to compete to be the ones to say those verses, to speak those verses. It was like a choir. One would shout a verse and the others would repeat it. So I was really, really happy and amazed to see all those kids that learned the verses by Mayakovsky, by Emily Dickinson, and they were so eager to shout it aloud. And initially this was unthinkable. As Lama said, in this journey, we started working little by little with little steps, and we ended with the great pray in paradise, and this pray was an image that would close everything, would end everything with a touch of hope in the highest sense of the word. When Dante is there in the dark wood, as any of us had a chance to experience in our lives once or multiple times, well, there is then a friendly hand that can take you out of there. And that is something, as we said before, that these kids did experience this. We could really see that by talking about hell, all the kids, all the people there aspire to beauty. They know that it's there. They want to reach it. They know it's inside. So that is something that in the final prayer was so visible and so true in their eyes. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. The last presentation gives me the chance to mention that this session was organized by AVSI, the European Union, and Concord Italia. On the other side, there is also the stand of the European Union, and I mention this because Giorgio Ficarelli, who is here with us, is International Relations Officer for Culture European Commission. It is important to mention this. I know that he thinks about these projects a lot. He follows them. And we can define these projects as cultural projects. Indeed, it is not maybe the most fashionable thing to say, but it's really the way it is. And we saw how fundamental it is, considering our experience. Yes, thank you. We can talk about cultural cooperation, indeed. For some years, the word culture was almost a negative word in the European Commission and also in the DG, but that's not the case anymore, I must say. Thanks to, well, not really thanks to, unfortunately, because of many situations that are taking place in the world, conflicts and difficult situations. Those who did not believe in this was forced to admit that it is not by bread alone that things can change. And luckily, the Commission, thanks to the DG too, and the Commissioner and the new Commission, it was possible to go back to some work that started 10 years ago to develop more the cultural dimension of international cooperation and of development. Before knowing about this experience, I had prepared some ideas that I wanted to share, but I've decided to change that after listening to the presentations, and there's some points I would like to raise. The first one is the importance of the cultural dimension. Those who are interested can also take a leaflet that I have prepared here about it. There was also a lot of communication going on with the European Parliament, with the European Commission, with the external services about the importance of culture in cooperation and culture in development too. Because we see that a real cooperation is an exchange, and exchange means knowing the other. And to know the other, it is necessary to know more about the culture that we have through which we look at the world. Otherwise, it is not possible to understand each other, and we are not aware of what differentiates us from the other living beings. That is the ability to interpret and to reason. This is something that we have, and it allows us to say things through art, through culture, that would not be possible to do in a normal dialogue, in a normal communication. Sometimes it is difficult for politicians to do or say some things, but artists and actors can really do this in a different, in an alternative way. I've seen a show by Pistoletti about technology and nature, and it was a wonderful creative experience. And I'm also amazed with what we have heard this evening here. There is a strong connection with intercultural dialogue. We talk about bread because in many situations there's a problem with the scarcity of food, there's a lack of drinkable water, of sewage systems and concrete things, and these things that are concrete must also go through the lens of arts and culture and dialogue. We have a lot of projects for which we have invested a lot of money, but they ended up in building roads that went through cemeteries and holy lands, and so they could never be realized. For example, the issue of infibulation, if it's not dealt with appropriately, well, that's a disaster. We have to know about things before taking action. And the power of art and culture is evident and has to be fueled, and that's what we have tried to do on many occasions. That's why I was interested in this debate. They have 12 non-schools, and in Italy too there are schools where there's no drama activities, and kids have a lot of difficulties. But, for example, my children were lucky enough to attend international schools where there were also theatrical activities, and I'm sure that that was a wonderful help for them. And then there is the concept of intercultural dialogue. And looking at how this project was managed, I think it was really interesting. When you mentioned the fact that the great director arrives but stops there to listen, to watch. He doesn't come to bring the final recipe, a ready-made recipe. And that's really interesting. When I got in touch about this and the people mentioned Dante to me in Kibera, and I thought, well, there's an issue with identity here, knowing about the oral culture of Africa and their tradition. But In an urban context of underdevelopment, this culture may disappear. That's a problem of underdevelopment. That is the lack of identity, the disappearance of identity. That is how and why terrorist groups focus on destroying culture, destroying religious symbols and cultural symbols, because men without identity can be involved in any kind of enterprise. And in these slums, life can become very difficult because there's no local community, there is no local culture which can be present in poor areas where there's anyway a lot of spiritual culture and richness. When we use intercultural dialogue, there's always two worlds talking to each other. So there is the action of listening and the action of proposing one's culture. And the stronger one often comes and wants to have the other guest try the other food, for example. But maybe African people don't like Italian pasta. Maybe they prefer to eat polenta, the maize cream, or some other meal. Or maybe we can invent some new pasta food with some new flavors. We mentioned Dante and Shakespeare. And not long ago we celebrated the 100th anniversary of Shakespeare, and I saw a very nice project to take Shakespeare around, Shakespeare's works around in the world and representing his works everywhere in the world. And I saw it in the south of Italy, and it was a wonderful thing because I could see wonderful performances. And for practical reasons, there were some groups of actors where the actors had to play multiple characters, and the set was really limited, and the English was a real English, and it was sometimes difficult to understand. But the whole enterprise was touching some groups in the society that had never been exposed to such an experience before. So it is really important to donate, to give to the other, but it is also important to be careful, to listen to the other, to be aware of the other, because otherwise our culture may not be appreciated fully. When we've heard of the approach used by Martinelli, it was really interesting. It would be wonderful to watch the play here and to appreciate how this play has been set up. It would be wonderful. So this is the kind of approach that we try to give to our cooperation activities. As I said, this is not something new. We tried to do this some years ago, but the previous commission did not appreciate this approach. However, now, undoubtedly, this is not the case anymore. What is going on in the world could not be foreseen 10, 15 years ago. Everybody thought that after the end of the two blocks, peace would come, but the evolution, the development of the world is not as easy and clear as it seems. So culture and heritage and culture become really important values. We have an identity building and sharing project now to create identity. And this project is all aimed at making people, putting people in contact. Whatever the wealth of people, there is something that people can give to the other. There is an exchange. There is the possibility to develop a new society, a peaceful society, an inclusive society. Thank you. Thank you, Giorgio Ficarelli. We've used some more time, but I see that all the people stayed here, and it would have been nice to have some questions, but we don't really have time because everything is going to be closed in a moment here, and we're going to be locked up. Just would like to mention that if you are interested in more information, there is the AVSI stand. You can watch the video in its full form, 15 minutes, some pictures, and you can get some data about this experience. Thank you very much.